Aaron Kane sat alone in his quarters, the soft hum of the research station around him offering a strange kind of comfort. The room was small, almost claustrophobic by some standards, but he didn't mind. He had grown used to the minimalism, the stark white walls, and the single porthole that looked out onto the stars. Every night, the distant constellations reminded him of the endless possibilities in the universe, though sometimes they also reminded him of how small humanity really was in the grand scheme of things. Tonight, he was supposed to be running diagnostics on the station's latest exploration drones. The aliens' signals had been strange for weeks, intermittent transmissions, patterns that didn't make immediate sense, and occasional bursts of energy that no one could explain. The other scientists and officers were busy analyzing data in the control room, but Aaron preferred the quiet of his quarters. He liked to think, to experiment, to run scenarios in his head without interruption. He was leaning back in his chair, scrolling through the latest drone images when the door suddenly opened. It wasn't a normal opening, the kind where someone would hesitate and knock or call his name. No, this was confident, almost audacious. A woman stepped into the room as if she owned it. She was tall with an upright posture and a confident stride, her boots clicking lightly against the metal floor. Her hair was dark and tied back, and her eyes, bright, alert, almost mischievous, locked on Aaron immediately. For a moment he froze, unsure if he should say something. Most people in the station would never have dared to enter his quarters unannounced. But she didn't hesitate, didn't ask for permission. She walked straight to the chair across from his desk and sat down, leaning slightly forward. The grin on her face was disarming, playful even, as though she knew something he didn't. "You're Aaron Kane," she said, her voice smooth and confident, carrying just the hint of a foreign accent. "I've heard a lot about you." "That's me." His voice sounded smaller than he wanted it to. "And you are." "You'll see," Alara said, tilting her head slightly as if she could read his thoughts. "I've traveled far to meet you, and I don't waste time with introductions. I prefer action." She didn't follow the usual protocols, didn't ask for permission, and yet she wasn't threatening. It was fascinating in a way he couldn't quite describe. "Well," he said carefully, "I suppose you want to talk about the drones or the alien signals, or—" "You." He had always thought of himself as competent, clever in his own quiet way, but being singled out by someone who seemed so confident, someone clearly not human, was exhilarating. "Okay," he said finally. "If this is a test, I'll play along, but you'll have to explain what kind of test it is first. You won't be solving puzzles on a screen or calculating trajectories. I want to see your instincts, your creativity, your ability to think under pressure. Can you handle that?" Her grin turned almost predatory, but in a way that made him laugh rather than fear her. "Good, that's the spirit. Humans are fascinating creatures. You never know what you'll do next. Sometimes you succeed in ways no one expects. But something tells me you won't fail. Humans rarely do when they're pushed in the right direction." "I suppose the first thing I should know," Aaron said, leaning forward slightly, "is what your species expects from us. Are you here to judge us, recruit us, or something else entirely? You create solutions when none seem possible. That is rare in the galaxy. And humans thrive in ways no one anticipates. That is why I am here. I need to see if your species can be more than survivors." "So," he said carefully, "how do we begin this test of mine, yours, or whatever this is?" What could he show that would be uniquely human? The aliens had machinery, strategy, and precision. Humans had imagination, ingenuity, a stubborn willingness to keep trying even when the odds seemed impossible. He smiled faintly. "Okay, I think I have an idea." He demonstrated systems in ways that were unconventional, sometimes bending the station's protocols in ways that would normally have earned him a reprimand. But Alara didn't react with anger or concern. Instead, she leaned closer, her eyes bright with interest, her grin unshakable. She asked questions that no one else had considered, forcing Aaron to explain his choices, his reasoning, and sometimes the little quirks of human logic that defied efficiency but worked nonetheless. He realized that she wasn't just observing him. She was learning from him, seeing human thought in action, appreciating the nuances that made humans unpredictable and effective. By the time the first artificial light cycle ended, Aaron felt a strange sense of exhilaration. He hadn't just worked alongside an alien, he had engaged in a mental sparring match, one that highlighted everything humans could offer. He was tired, yes, but he was also more alive than he had been in months. Alara stood, stretching slightly. Her presence filled the room, commanding attention without effort. "You've done well tonight, Aaron Kane," she said. "Better than I expected, in fact. I can see why your species persists where others would falter. The real test is ahead, but tonight, you've shown me that humans are worth watching. That your kind can adapt, improvise, and surprise. That is a rare gift." Not just because of the alien's audacity or confidence, but because she had seen something in him, and by extension in humanity, that others often overlooked. Finally, Alara turned toward the door, still smiling. "Rest now. Tomorrow we begin again. There is much more to learn, and I suspect your species has even greater surprises in store." He sat back, staring out the porthole at the stars, feeling for the first time that humanity might truly have a role far beyond what he had ever imagined. Alone again, he allowed himself a small grin. Humans were bold, humans were curious, and tonight, humans had impressed an alien in ways that would ripple far beyond this tiny room at the edge of explored space. And somehow, Aaron knew that this was only the beginning. Aaron Kane did not sleep much after Alara left his quarters. His mind stayed active, replaying every word she had spoken, every look and question. The stars outside the porthole seemed different now, not distant and cold, but closer somehow, as if they were listening. When the station lights dimmed and shifted into the artificial night cycle, Aaron remained awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of real test waited for him. By the time the station's morning cycle began, he was already dressed and seated at his console. He told himself to focus on routine work, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Alara. She had moved with confidence, spoken with certainty, and looked at him like he was part of a puzzle she was excited to solve. That was new. Most people on the station treated him as just another engineer, skilled but replaceable. Alara had seen something more. A soft chime sounded at the door. Aaron straightened. "Come in," he said. The door slid open, and Alara stepped inside as boldly as before. She looked exactly the same, calm, confident, alert, as if she never needed rest. She glanced around the room, then back at him, her familiar grin appearing almost instantly. "Good," she said. "You're awake. Humans often surprise me with their endurance. Some of us don't shut our brains off very easily. Today, you won't work alone. That would defeat the purpose." Aaron felt suddenly self-conscious, but Alara showed no sign of discomfort. She stood tall, hands relaxed at her sides, meeting every gaze without hesitation. A senior officer stepped forward. "Lieutenant Kane, our guest has requested a joint exercise. She claims it will help us understand cooperation." "And what exactly does that involve?" "This is a scenario," Alara said, her voice calm but firm. "A situation where no single solution is obvious. Your technology can repair the station, but not quickly enough. My people's methods are efficient but rigid. Alone, both approaches fail. But more importantly, the goal is to see how humans adapt when logic alone is not enough." Alara stepped closer. "Then change your approach." "Explain." They used unconventional power routing, temporary system overlaps, and creative problem-solving. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't perfect, but it worked. The simulation stabilized just seconds before critical failure. The chamber lights returned to normal. Several people exhaled in relief, some laughed quietly. Alara clapped her hands once, a sharp, clear sound. "Excellent. Sometimes that's all we have. New alliances will decide what survives. Sometimes moral decisions where there was no clear right answer. In every case, humans struggled at first. And in every case, they adapted. They argued, they questioned assumptions, they found solutions no one expected." Alara watched closely, often sitting near Aaron, occasionally asking questions that pushed him to think deeper. She never gave answers, she only guided. Aaron began to notice something else as well. Alara was learning, not just about humans, but from them. She asked about art, humor, and curiosity. She listened when people spoke about failure and hope. She seemed especially interested in the idea that humans often learned more from mistakes than from success. "That is inefficient," she said once. Aaron smiled. "Maybe. But it works." "There is resistance," she admitted. "Some believe humans are too unpredictable, too emotional." "Tomorrow," Alara said at last, "I will present my findings to my people, and to yours." Aaron leaned back, heart racing. Whatever was coming next, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was no longer being observed from a distance. Humanity was being invited to step forward. The next morning, the station was unusually quiet. Even the usual hum of the air circulation seemed softer, almost respectful, as if it sensed the importance of what was about to happen. Aaron Kane woke early, restless with anticipation. Last night's revelation from Alara had left him uneasy and exhilarated at the same time. The final test was coming, and though he didn't know exactly what it would be, he felt a responsibility, not just for himself but for everyone on the station. He dressed quickly, ensuring his uniform was neat, his tools ready, and his mind focused. By the time he reached the shared observation chamber, a group of officers and scientists had already gathered. Their faces reflected the same mixture of excitement and uncertainty he felt. None of them had slept particularly well either. Alara was already there, standing near the center of the chamber. Her presence seemed larger than life. She smiled when she saw him, her confidence unwavering. She did not explain, did not invite discussion. She only gestured for him to follow. The chamber lights dimmed and a new simulation projected itself around them. This one was different. It was vast, almost overwhelming. A colossal alien vessel hovered in the void of space. Its structure was complex, intricate, and clearly not human-made. Its systems were active but partially unstable, and the readings indicated that a minor mistake could compromise its integrity. "This is not just a simulation," Alara said calmly. "It is a scenario based on real data. The vessel belongs to a species far older than yours. They have never interacted with humans. They do not understand you. How you approach this will define the first impressions of your kind." Alara's grin was steady, encouraging. Where humans always start, observe, understand, then act. He had never interacted with anything like this before, yet somewhere deep inside, he knew humans thrived in moments of uncertainty. Adaptability was their strength. He moved closer to the central control interface, analyzing the alien schematics. The systems were complex but logical, not like humans, not like their station, but with patterns he could decipher. Slowly, he began issuing instructions, coordinating the team. "Adjust the power flow here," he said, pointing to a sequence of glowing panels. "It's inefficient by your standards, but it prevents the core from overloading." Certain sections of the vessel required creative thinking. Aaron remembered the lessons from the previous days. It wasn't about following manuals or predictable logic. It was about improvising, combining intuition with knowledge. He guided the team to reroute energy through auxiliary channels, a method no one had tried before. The vessel responded positively, systems stabilizing, though not perfectly. It was human ingenuity in action, messy, unconventional, yet effective. "Good," Alara said softly. "You are seeing what my people cannot." The alien vessel reacted to each human decision in unpredictable ways. Sometimes it faltered, sometimes it adapted. The team learned to anticipate and adjust, communicating clearly, collaborating seamlessly, and relying on both experience and instinct. During one critical moment, a central energy conduit began to overload. The readouts flashed red. Panic could have easily taken hold, but Aaron stayed calm. He quickly assessed the situation, realizing that attempting to shut down the conduit completely would destabilize other systems. Instead, he proposed a partial reroute combined with temporary redistribution to minor auxiliary nodes. "Trust me," he said quietly to the team. "It's risky, but it works." Slowly, the conduit stabilized, the flashing warnings dimmed. A collective sigh of relief filled the chamber. Alara's grin was wider than ever. "You see," she said, "humans do not rely solely on protocol. You improvise, you take responsibility, you adapt." It demanded understanding, empathy, and diplomacy. The vessel's AI, or perhaps consciousness, was still responding to their actions. It was cautious, observing, learning. One wrong gesture could close all avenues of interaction. Alara spoke quietly, almost as if reminding him, the final judgment is not on efficiency, it is on character. Humans were flawed, often reckless, sometimes stubborn. Yet those same traits allowed them to create solutions others could not imagine. They could connect with others, understand motivations, and inspire cooperation. He realized that the alien vessel was a test not just of intellect, but of humanity itself. He approached the main interface. "We need to communicate," he said. "Not just manipulate systems. We need to show intelligence and goodwill. We show intent through action." Slowly, the vessel's systems began to respond more predictably, almost as if acknowledging their efforts. Alara watched with fascination. "This is more than stabilization," she said. "This is a demonstration of human essence." The team stared at each other, exhausted but exhilarated. They had done what no one had expected. Alara stepped forward, her eyes bright. "Humans," she said clearly, addressing everyone, "you have succeeded not because you followed instructions perfectly, but because you applied your nature, you adapted, you created, you connected. And that is why you are essential." He turned to see Alara smiling warmly. "You have shown what I hoped for," she said. "My people will see it now and they will understand. Humans are not merely survivors. You are innovators, collaborators, and pioneers. That is exactly why the galaxy will need you. The galaxy is vast, and opportunities for humans are limitless." As the door closed, Aaron turned to the team. Their eyes met his, full of energy and hope. No words were needed. They had achieved something monumental together. Later, back in his quarters, Aaron sat by the porthole, staring at the stars. He thought about everything that had happened. The bold visitor who entered his room without hesitation, the tests that challenged him and his people, and the understanding he had gained about what made humans truly remarkable. For the first time, he felt that humanity was not just surviving on the edge of known space. They were beginning to be recognized as a species capable of shaping the future. Alara's words echoed in his mind. The galaxy is vast, and opportunities for humans are limitless. And maybe, just maybe, they would inspire others along the way. He leaned back, allowing the calm of the station and the vastness of space to settle around him. For all the uncertainty that remained, there was one undeniable truth. Humanity had proven itself, and that proof was only the beginning.